Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I am delighted to welcome a very senior and respected marketing guru and leader, and an author, and an entrepreneur from Portland, Oregon, Monique Hayward. Monique, welcome to the show.
Yes, hello there. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you. Monique is the Chief Marketing Officer of enactify.ai. She was earlier with Microsoft, Intel, and Tektronix. She's an author of two books titled Divas Doing Business, What the Guidebooks Don't Tell You About Being a Woman Entrepreneur, and Get Your Hustle On. It's not just about getting a job, but getting a rewarding career. And given the amazing work that Monique has been doing, understandably, she's been recognized, awarded, and felicitated several times. So, Monique, we're going to talk about two things today. One is marketing, and second is your books. But before we get into that, tell me about your own journey in brief.
Sure. So again, thank you very much for having me on. My journey started on the East Coast of the United States. I'm originally from New York City, and I split my childhood between there and Columbia, South Carolina. And I grew up wanting to be a journalist. That was my first passion. I mean, there's a picture of me at career day in the 5th grade where I had like a little station, and there was a sign that said reporter, and I was playing the part of a newspaper reporter, and so I did everything in my power to prepare for a career in journalism. And I went to the University of Maryland, College Park, which is right outside of Washington, D.C., because my aspiration really was to be a political reporter for the Washington Post. Like, I was that specific. And so I went to Maryland, and when I started in J school, I said, oh, wow. Not that I was actually prescient at all about what was going to happen to the newspaper industry at age 18, 19, right? I was like, oh, wow, you don't start out at the Washington Post, and you certainly don't get onto the political desk just coming right out of school. You start more like, chasing ambulances and writing obituaries for the state newspaper in Columbia, South Carolina, right? And so I decided to shift my focus. And instead of newspaper, I switched to public relations. So then that opened up a new world for me in terms of being able to continue to hone my skills around communication and storytelling, having a deadline-driven approach to, how I see the world. And laying the foundation for what would come next in terms of getting an MBA from Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. And then that propelled me when I got my MBA to start my career in high technology. And so I moved to Beaverton, Oregon, at the age of 24 years old, not knowing anybody, not having at that point traveled west of the Mississippi. And there I was all by myself, starting a new career in high technology. And the rest, as they say, is history. So
absolutely.
You
took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say the rest is history. So Monique, let's now talk about marketing. You worked with tech giants like Microsoft and Intel. I'd love to get your perspective on what do you think are the biggest challenges marketers in the technology business face today?
I think that the challenges for marketers today are pretty unique in terms of just where we are as an inflection point in this day and age. I mean, AI is, of course, redefining how businesses are operating across the board. And I think it's especially interesting from a marketing perspective because there are a lot of things that marketers have been investing in terms of their technology stacks, their capabilities, how they actually create relationships with their audiences, their users, their customers. And AI is going to open up a brand new world of possibility to be able to increase engagement, to build brand love, and to help with providing more air cover, if you will, for the sales organizations. So I think that there's a lot of excitement and even a lot of trepidation in some cases about how AI is going to be transformative for marketers. But if you are a marketing person right now and you are not down this path of learning how AI is going to fundamentally change how you are doing marketing, then you got to get onto that bandwagon fast. So that's the first thing. I think the other thing too is that we are looking at a landscape where it is very important to ensure that you build brand, right? And the brand called you, right? I mean, I think that there is a lot of focus in terms of differentiation, in terms of how companies show up with their products, and not just having a one-way relationship with their audiences, right? There has to be this give and take, and there has to be relationship building in marketing these days. And then I think the last thing is that he who tells the best story wins.
Correct.
And I think that there's been a huge shift in how marketers think about how they are communicating with their customers, with their audiences, with their constituencies, in a way that's more inspirational, in a way that's more human, and especially in high technology and specifically B2B marketing, where we have a tendency to think that businesses are not like everybody else. Like we've had a tendency, I think, in marketing sometimes to kind of draw a line of separation between consumer and business marketing. And I think you're starting to see a little more blending of some of those principles and some of those approaches, so that B2B becomes even more sort of humanized.
Absolutely. What a great response. Thank you. And yet, Monique, when I was reading about you, not only have you been a senior tech marketer, but you've been an entrepreneur. You are an entrepreneur as well. And you've got businesses in hospitality and personal chef services. How do you manage marketing for businesses which have such diverse audiences?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's not for lack of trying, I tell you that. In my career, I've led kind of a dual path for myself. So the high technology marketing executive career is one thread, and then the entrepreneurial piece is the other thread. And so and I've had some very diverse businesses. I started out with a restaurant business, and then I was a partner in a software company, and then I started this personal chef business, and added on a short-term vacation rental property to kind of expand our horizons in this particular venture. And so the marketing is really interesting from an entrepreneurial perspective, because you're operating at a different scale, but the challenges are pretty similar in terms of what it is that you're really trying to accomplish. You're still trying to manage, the 4 Ps, right? You're still trying to figure out what is the best way that I can ensure that I'm attracting the right customers to my business. How can I ensure that I have the right messaging? How can I make sure that I'm generating the right leads? Having the right conversations, and also staying on top of the trends, right? I mean, I think that a lot of small business owners are so involved in managing their businesses, right? That they get a little myopic, and it's hard to kind of lift up and say, hey, what's going on in the world? Because there's so many demands just running the business. And from a marketing perspective, you've got to be ahead of the curve, and you've got to be kind of skating, if you will, where the puck is going, as they say.
Correct. Well said. And given the fact, I mean, that you know technology well, but with the rise of so many different platforms of artificial intelligence and all the automation that's happening, how do you see the role of technology in transforming the marketing and customer engagement?
I see it transforming it in 3 primary ways. I think the first is going to be how we market. So what does that portfolio of capabilities around marketing look like? I believe that digital transformation and artificial intelligence kind of underpinning a lot of those capabilities are going to really disrupt what a marketing capability portfolio looks like. So that's the first thing. The second thing I think is going to happen is that we are going to have to be a lot smarter about how we deliver value to the business. And let me give you an example. So with Enactify, one of the value propositions that we have is that, for marketers, we will give them an opportunity to better engage with their customers through existing content that they have that is, trapped inside of static documents, right? And we have come up with a way to unleash e-commerce capabilities within a static PDF document. So imagine what that will do for the marketer who is responsible for that content to be able to unleash e-commerce capabilities. Now you're affecting sales, right? Now you're saying, oh, if I can actually trace my campaign directly through to somebody's sale as a result of a piece of content that I created and enabled with a technology platform that was, leading edge, boy, that's a different conversation than just, how many leads did I generate or how much awareness did I get or how many social media likes did I get? And then I think the third thing is that as marketing professionals, right, we get to actually increase our own skill set. We get to increase our own capability. We get to be, that next generation of marketer who is, on the leading edge, bleeding edge of a new opportunity that doesn't come around very much in a career. So one of the things that I talk about when I'm mentoring and coaching younger people is that, over the course of a career, especially in high technology, how many times do you really get to be witness to major technology shifts and transformations? And I've had the fortunate experience in my career to have been through a couple of different major technology transformations that fundamentally changed how we do business, right? The internet, wireless communication, cellular communication, now, digital transformation and artificial intelligence, software defined capabilities, cloud computing, right? All of these things. So, as marketers, right, you want to be in the mix, if you will, to ensure that you are always increasing your skills, your capability, your knowledge, your expertise, so that you can be on the leading edge of those trends. So I think those are the three ways.
Absolutely. What a great response. Thank you. My next question is on culture, Monique. You live in a country which is probably one of the most culturally diverse countries in the world. How do you adapt your marketing strategies to such culturally diverse audiences? Because understanding of the story that you are telling may mean different things to different cultures.
Yeah, I think that there has been a huge push. And I think going back to the AI conversation, this is where I think we have an opportunity to fine tune a lot of the models that are coming online to help marketers with getting very specific and very targeted and very focused with their marketing strategies and with their marketing campaigns. And so one of the things that, I have always been conscious of as a marketer is that, not everybody, of course, is the same as you described. And people come from different backgrounds. They have different experiences. They have different, areas of opportunity that you encounter when you are engaged in a conversation from the company's point of view to that customer, to that audience, to that constituent. And I think that what is interesting about a multicultural, diverse audience set that you are working with as a marketer is that that's an opportunity for so many different conversations about the same company or about the
Mm.
same product, because
Mm.
not everybody comes to it, with that same perspective. And so the challenge is that what is going to resonate with one set of customers or one set of audiences may be completely different than someone else who uses the same product.
Mm.
And so the adventure in figuring out ways to segment the market, to create different value propositions, to create different messages, to create different stories, right?
Mm.
And then I also think that being in a diverse market like the United States, and certainly other places around the world,
Mm.
you have this opportunity to to really create affinity
Mm.
if you know how to talk to people where they are, and where they are, physically, but also where they are, on the journey with
Mm.
you as a marketer,
Mm.
right? And one of the things that I've done in my career is that I have always been leaning in on where do we have the opportunity throughout the buyer's journey to
Mm.
really tell a great story that helps the customer solve a problem,
Mm.
that really is creating value for them at every stage of the journey. And the other thing too that we are absolutely guilty of all the time in high technology, because we're so focused on innovation,
Yeah.
we're so focused on what's new, what's next, what's the next big thing.
Mm.
We have a tendency to abandon people at the back end of that journey a lot of
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
right? A lot of times people aren't ready to move on to the next thing, right?
Mm.
They just barely got focused on this thing, right? And now here we are, they're still on 1.0, we're with 2.0, 3.0, ready on 4.0. It's like, let's make sure that we bring everybody along.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with diverse audiences, right, you have to manage that carefully to ensure that you meet all of your customers where they are.
Well said. Great response. One more question relating to marketing, and then I want to move to your books. What
Okay.
role does personal branding play in your overall marketing strategy, both for your ventures and for yourself as an individual?
Great. Oh, wow. So personal branding is something that is near and dear to my heart. And, we're going to talk about, my books as you
Mm.
just
Yeah.
described.
Mm.
So one of my books is called Get Your Hustle On.
Yeah.
And the hustle really is all about how do you build a rewarding career? Because you can be in a job, right? But as I described earlier, right,
Mm.
your career is going to be multifaceted. It's going to be, a long haul.
Mm.
And how you manage that along the way is something that is critical that you need to be thinking about in the early stages,
Yeah.
right? And one of those things that is really important is your personal brand. And
Mm.
that is, how do you show up,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
And who shows up?
Mm.
And I believe that it is very important to be investing
Mm.
in your personal brand by way of your knowledge, your expertise, your
Mm.
competence, your skill set, all of that great training, all of that great experience that you have as a professional, whether you're in
Correct.
marketing, whether you're an engineer, whether you're a supply chain expert, whatever it is that you do,
Mm.
right? You are building your personal brand around that core skill set, that core competence.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think about in terms of personal brand is
Mm.
that it is the currency that you trade for
Mm.
influence.
Correct.
The reason to build a personal brand is because you're trying to influence someone.
Mm.
You're trying to move them to action. You're trying to work with someone on a project. You're trying
Mm.
to make them pay attention to your campaign if you're a marketing person, right?
Mm.
You're trying to close a deal if you're a business development person. You're trying to make a sale if you're a
Yeah.
salesperson. And so the more that you are known, the more that you invest in those opportunities to build your own personal brand
Mm.
around your expertise, then the higher, if you will, your currency is,
Mm.
and the better you can trade it for that influence.
Mm.
So that's how I view
Very
personal
well said.
brand. Yeah.
Well said.
And
Well said.
yeah, and how you manage it in your
Correct.
career.
Correct. So now let's move to your books, Monique. You said, spoke very briefly about your book, Get Your Hustle On. In this book, tell me a little bit about the book. And you talk
Yeah.
about building a rewarding career. How do you define a
Yeah.
rewarding career in today's world?
Oh, wow. In today's world, a rewarding career is one that you feel fulfilled in.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a job.
Mm-hmm.
You have purpose, you have meaning, and you have intention around what it is that you are trying to do to make your mark in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that a lot of people who are starting early in their careers are not necessarily thinking about, what does that look like for the long haul? It's
Mm-hmm.
about, starting out and figuring out, oh my gosh, well, what am I going to do in this job? How am I going to make sure that I don't get fired? How am I going to that I know how to get my job done, right? So I think there are a lot of these concerns that people have, especially early in their careers, that they're not necessarily thinking about and laying a good foundation for. So that's what Get Your Hustle On is all about, right? It's
Okay.
about really building that foundation early on
Mm-hmm.
so that as you're moving through your career, you're being intentional,
Mm-hmm.
that you are making choices that are good choices, and that you have the support, and that you have the and you have the networks, and you have the personal brand piece, and you have the storytelling, all of that wrapped together so
Mm-hmm.
that you have a thriving career as you're progressing along.
Well said. Your second book, Monique, is Divas Doing Business, and this focuses on women entrepreneurs. I'd love to
Yes.
get your perspective on what are some of the unique challenges women entrepreneurs face.
Yeah. I wrote Divas Doing Business. It was born out of my frustration as a first-time entrepreneur when I started my restaurant business.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there were some challenges because it was really hard, and I think women have some unique challenges from a number of different perspectives. Number one, we a lot of times don't come to business ventures, entrepreneurial opportunities with all of the experience, all of the networks, all of the access to capital, a lot of the insider knowledge that that men have when they start their businesses. And so I think that it is uniquely interesting for women to navigate that terrain, because a lot of times we do start at that disadvantage. I think also it's a lot of times women aren't always taken seriously,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I remember distinctly having conversations with potential bankers about supporting my restaurant business, and I was actually employed full time at the same time I was doing
Yep.
my entrepreneurial ventures.
Mm-hmm.
That's still the case. I have this as my kind of my concurrent career.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked into this bank, and this banker, he was an older gentleman, and he was giving me such a hassle about a $50,000 loan. And I said to him, I leaned over like this onto his desk, and
Mm-hmm.
I said, with my credit score and my income and the fact that I have a full-time job, I should just be able to sign my name on this application and get $50,000. Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
And
And
I
I
got the
hope
loan.
you got the loan.
Yes, I got
Oh,
the loan.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Wonderful. And Monique, my last question to you. How have
Yeah.
your experiences in marketing and entrepreneurship shaped the narrative in both your books?
Wow, that's really interesting. Like I said, Divas was born out of my
Yeah.
entrepreneurial experience.
Yeah.
And what wound up happening when I wrote that book was that I was looking for resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
And trying to figure out, like, am I experiencing something that is unique, or are other people experiencing this? And there just weren't a lot of sources that I was finding in all in one place. And so I decided that, what, I'm going to write the book because, other people will follow behind me, and will be interested in knowing what my journey was, and kind of what my perspective and experience was.
Mm-hmm.
with the hustle, that was born out of my need to give back. And I, as a senior leader, especially in high technology companies like Microsoft and Intel, I found myself being the one in the room a lot, right? So yeah, the only woman, the only African-American woman, the only, and at some point, when there are people who are coming up behind you and they see you as the example, they want to get on your calendar, they want to know what's going on, and they want to have access to you. And so I decided that very early in my career, actually, that I would give back in that way so that people who were coming behind me would understand how important it is to navigate in this environment. So that's, so I think there's a little bit of the entrepreneurial spirit in that, and the take control of your career.
Absolutely.
And like I said before, be intentional about it.
Correct. And on that note, Monique, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me about your own journey. So you've had such an incredible career, from journalism to public relations to technology marketing to being an entrepreneur. We covered a lot of very interesting points in marketing, the challenges marketers face, how to handle diverse audiences, how to tackle AI and automation. We spoke about culture and its impact. We also got a chance to talk about personal branding, and I loved your perspectives on personal branding. And finally, we spoke about both your books. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.